Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. We are now in the reflection period of the previous video from Sandra Brown's book regarding the emotionally unavailable person. I have some issues with this particular chapter, which is just, of course, my opinion, but figured I would share. We talk about Johnny, don't call me, I'll call you. Well, Sandra seems to think that every single one of these dangerous people is the number one favorite of targets. But what she is saying, though, is that these types are different than the others who are like in a bar every night or who are violent or whatever she says. She's warning us basically that this person has hobbies that he or she digs. And how could that person hurt you? Well, we'll continue on before saying anything. Men or women with particular hobbies that are consuming are dangerous. And she's stating that this type should not be considered serious dating material, and she says because his or her emotions are connected elsewhere. Then again, she also mentions they're either engaged in like an activity, plus they might be already married, engaged, or seriously dating someone, which is kind of like blurs the whole thing up, because it's one thing if you're competing to win some kind of track meet contest versus you're married but you're chasing after another chick or something. But she's blended it all together, so we'll just go with what she's given us. Then she goes on to tell us that he doesn't have a wife. She's talking about a man. He doesn't have a wife or a girlfriend and doesn't really want one, even if he says he does. Instead, he has interests that are so all-consuming that dating and blah, blah, blah. The point here is, what I'm getting out of this chapter is, basically, it's a man who's got interests. And she's stating they're dangerous because they have interests. And I have a hard time dealing with some of this because people can have interests. And of course she tries to say, I'm not saying that people that have interests are blah, blah, but yes, you are. You're saying they're dangerous. And my point is, for example, me. I'm a musical person. So several years ago, I used to spend like hours in the recording studio in my own home. Well, let's just say I was going to find a relationship with someone. Well, I might bring that someone into the studio and explain what I'm doing. But she's talking about these people with these interests that evidently want to pursue them aside or away from their dating partner. So I think it's a matter of communication. Like, hey, I spend hours in the music studio. Do you want to learn about some singing and some sounds? Great, come. But she's making it out as if somebody has an external interest that it has to exclude whoever he or she is dating. And as far as the other part she talked about, the schooling, and if he's really, he or she, well, she says he, if it's trying to like get this degree or get this accomplishment, well, I would view that as like a temporary thing. Like if you're going for a degree, well, it's not going to be forever. It's going to be for the period it takes to get the degree. So it seems like she's being a little harsh on people that actually have goals and direction in their own life. And she kind of sounds like a poor crying lady wishing her man would be focused on her and her only, not understanding that people do have other interests in this world. And then she talks about how the guy or girl may say, hey, baby, I don't want a relationship because I have other commitments. Yet the person will come to your bedroom, she says. Well, of course, people are going to go to people's bedrooms. And then she says, too, I took special note of this, where she says, he or she is more than willing to keep you and your emotions engaged in a friendship or a casual dating relationship that leaves you unavailable to pursue relationships with other more available men. Now that one is BS. Because I even talked to a friend of mine about this too, where she said that before she was married, she used to be a single lady, and she would meet a particular man and maybe hang out with him, date him, whatever, and then he would be gone for weeks or months. Well, she didn't think that, oh dear, because I had this date with him, we're together, oh, I can't date anyone else. No! And Sandra may be a little bit old-fashioned, thinking that if two people spend time together and plan to again, that automatically means that they have some kind of something, which in this, at least day and age, no. Which my friend had said, if I meet somebody, we hang out, we do things, and then he's out of town for 3 months or whatever, she's not going to sit there at home waiting for him to come back. She might pursue somebody else. But Sandra is insinuating that this person that you've been seeing, supposedly, is going to keep you from such things. And then she goes on about Lance Armstrong. She should have mentioned Bruce Jenner, but she didn't. So it sounds like she's bashing people who have interests that may keep them tied up. And here she goes, I'm not saying that being passionate about one's career or hobbies is negative. It's positive and healthy for a person to be interested in his or her life. Just be aware that there are plenty of people out there who have satisfying and busy careers and hobbies, yet still have time and energy for a healthy relationship. Well, Sandra, maybe you didn't try hard enough? I don't know. But then she's saying some people are chronically unavailable for long-term serious relationships, and they'll always have a reason why they just can't do it. Well, maybe they're not ready. Pushy. And then she talks about this one I have thoughts on. The person who is unavailable because it has a relationship or relationships with another person or several persons. And I've known a few of these, and I used to be one too, temporarily. They don't want to be with anything permanent, and they give lip service. These people are never really committed to anyone. They don't see any relationship as necessarily permanent, including marriage. Even if they give the lip service, which, I'm deeply committed to my wife, but she'll be gone at 3 o'clock, so if you want to come over for just an hour. That kind of thing goes on. But basically, Sandra at this point is giving us common sense. At least for some of us, at least in my experience, let's say I'm freshly single, which I used to be at one point, and I see a couple together who appears to be a couple, but let's say one of them branches off to me and says, "Hey, we're not really a real couple. I really like you." Well, I have enough common sense and experience to know that if such a thing happens, there's no way that I'm going to think, "Oh, this person must be the one." I would take it for what it is, which is a person who's involved who wants to expand its horizons. It also tells us, I agree with her here, where they don't take their relationship seriously because here they are together with someone, and then when the someone's in the other room, they're like, "Hi, I really like you." Well, that's giving you a picture of what you're dealing with, meaning if by chance you were to switch places with their current partner and be their new partner, guess what would be happening when your back was turned? The same thing. But I guess maybe she's trying to warn people of this, even though I already knew it. And when she talks about whichever type of unavailable person, we often confuse an availability for sexual engagement with an availability for emotional engagement, intimacy, and commitment. In fact, most of these emotionally unavailable people will remain sexually available to you. But that doesn't change the fact, she says, that they're taken in other areas of their lives. Well, of course, if you know they're taken, well, then you know they're taken. And she's trying to warn us that the person involved understands this completely, but the people it dates many times do not, which begins a spiraling pattern of the partner hoping and waiting for a connection and commitment. Give it up. But she does give some wise words. She says that by definition, someone who is emotionally unavailable does not expect or want or doesn't know how to expect emotional depth with others. And she's stating it's probably because these types of people have all kinds of others that are like trying to get their attention, and they go from partner to partner, and they're uninterested in experiencing deep feelings with another person. Well, sure, I've met plenty of those. Now here she goes with some good words. People who are wired this way are not open to authentic, deep relationships. She talks about how it stays on the surface when you're with such a person, and I know she's right there. It can say the intimate words that make it seem like, oh wow, this person knows what's going on, but it isn't real. It's superficial. Which ties into the cluster B monsters, because they'll do all this stuff too. Well, they'll make these claims of, "I want to be in a relationship that lasts forever with one person," and you'll be like, "Oh, really? Did you have one of those before?" "No, but I want." "Didn't you have 6 partners last month?" "Oh, well, that's the past. I now want." Yeah, whatever. So yes, some of these are dangerous fools. But as she states, real intimacy involves an ongoing mutual commitment to strengthening and deepening a bond, and many people out there don't have that ability. And then she talks about, which I agree with, it was for the man who cheats on his partner or spouse, although he may have multiple relationships going on at one time, the continuation of the relationships is not what makes this person tick. But yes, if he's got several at a time and one of them finds out about another one and then says, I'm through, well, it's no ruffling of his feathers because he's got 6 others. And yes, I've covered that in other videos. But she's basically alluding to the fact that he cannot make major changes in how he approaches his relationships, and he lacks the ability to be monogamous, which I've seen a few of those that claim to be monogamous, yet they're whores behind the scenes. And she goes on to talk about how some people get involved with married people on a serial basis. They just want to have fun. Sandra is saying that, stating that I'm dating married men because I don't want to get serious. She's stating that those words do not stack up in light of what we know about the psychology and sociology of women or men's approaches to relationships. Some do like to just say they're having fun rather than admit that they're repeatedly sabotaging their own deepest desires for intimacy. Then she goes in to talk about how these dangerous people may have had a father figure who was unavailable due to alcoholism, workaholism, and blah, 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 and abuse. And then she talks about the undisclosed homosexuality or bisexuality, or they have a sexual addiction, and this addiction fuels their pursuit of rapidly revolving superficial relationships. But regardless, this is a wide variety of types, but she's stating they're all emotionally unavailable. And then she mentions, like with the other types of dangerous people, there's usually a sad story from the past to accompany the present day, which I've seen that a few times, where it's kind of apparent that certain things just aren't together in someone, and they'll have like a story for it. Oh, well, that's because my mother never did this for me or something. Now, I find it interesting how Sandra talks about how certain people will meet someone new and state that their current spouse doesn't really ever love them and doesn't appreciate them, wastes money, runs around, unmotivated, and so on. Sandra is telling us that many people out there are quick to take that hook and believe it and think to themselves that, wow, I met this great person and he or she's already involved with someone, but I know why it's unhappy. Well, I can make the difference, and good luck. But she's stating that many people take this hook too often, and they really believe that these little issues that are being discussed are the only issues this person has. And sure that they'll be able to provide something that the other one never did. Which my point on that is like, look, person's with the person it's with for reasons. It wouldn't just normally get together with a person and have nothing going on that works. I mean, they wouldn't do it, you'd think. Yet, here we are, a stranger to the situation, seeing this beautiful knight or woman in shining armor, thinking, wow, here she's in the wrong relationship. Well, I'll take care of that. Well, no, you won't. And some of these people, she says, feel, well, even though he's married to her and he's messing with me, I'll love him. So when I'm with him, he won't do that to me. Wrong. History has a tendency to repeat itself. She mentions, too, the ones who run around behind their partner's back like somebody naive who says, well, I have no expectation. And these types hope that that naive person will believe it when it says, "You are the only one." And please, you can watch my other videos for that. Heard that one enough. And then Sandra says that those who state to the womanizer, "I have no expectations about the outcome of this," it's extremely appealing to the womanizer. Sandra is saying, if you make such a claim, do not try the bait and switch technique of later saying, "Oh, I just said that, but really, I do want to marry you forever." She's saying not to do that because that just doesn't work. It's not going to happen. And it's interesting how she mentions how the womanizer's code of ethics says, if you date me knowing I am not monogamous, then you already know what I'm about. To later hold me to higher standards is unfair. I've never heard those words, but I have seen those actions. There is one valid point that comes across in this chapter, which is if you find yourself involved with someone, let's just say, who's already living with someone else or already in some kind of relationship, you gotta know that the person you're messing with isn't the material that you'd want to spend your full time with, because look at what they're doing now. They are telling on themselves by being with someone currently and sneaking around for you. Well, I've met a few of those, and I would be thinking to myself, gee, let's just say I did make things work with this person. Do I really want to be that person who's being deceived when I'm away or at work or wherever while it's doing the very same thing? But many people are naive and don't want to believe that. They want to accept the implication that, well, this person I've met is in a relationship, but it's not the right one. Well, I am the right one. So, if he gets rid of that relationship, then I'll be in. No, that is retarded and not true. But many of us may believe such things, and I've learned, if you see them lying and sneaking around with you, they're going to do it if you do switch over and become theirs. It's just the way it is. And that brings us to Sandra's assessment, which I thought was actually kind of brilliant, when she says, men who are unfaithful with you will be unfaithful to you. And it's very wise that she says that person's issue isn't that it's with the wrong person, it's that it's got the wrong character. Its character will not be any different with you. And so many of us fools think, oh, well, that may be the case with the current marriage, but I'm going to make the difference. No, you're not. But yes, I agree. It's not a good idea to date someone who's married, unless, the only unless would be if you can see things for what they are and think, well, if I'm going to date this person because they're pretty, well, we can date for a little while, but that's it. It's not going to switch into, I want to be with you now forever. It's like, oh, no, you don't. Because you know better, because so many don't realize that. They're naive and think, wow, that person's married and likes me. I must be so great. Oh, wow. Well, who cares if it's married and wants me? I'm going to switch and get married to it. If you do such a thing, guess what happens down the road? The same thing.
And yes, in case you're wondering, I read your letter. And I'll go ahead and address the part where you wondered how I could have told you that I loved you, being the nice Christian virgin you were. Well, again.
I ain't no Christian. I ain't no virgin. I was being what you said you were. So I don't know what any of that stuff means. So I beg your pardon if I told you I loved you. I just know that that line works with other people to get me what I want. I don't know what any of it means. I'm assuming you do. Well, please tell me. On second thought, don't.
Hi. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. There's been a misunderstanding. That's right, I've made a mistake. All those things I said, none of them were true. I am a virgin. I am in love with you.
I am the narcopath. Remember me? Well, it was you and you only forever. But unfortunately, you found other characters that fit into the story that just kind of disproved that. But
once you eventually started to figure me out, it got more and more difficult to fool you. I am the narcopath. I'm transgendered. And I'm a lesbian, a man.
and a woman.